it was a complete training ground. And I just said yes to everything. Anything that interests me in that way, I just kept saying yes to it. And I kept doing these trainings and then sharing my gifts and honing my skills. And then finally came back to LA and was like, okay, I can do this here. I'm going to actually take this, really seriously and create a business out of it. And a couple of years later, I did QCA with you. And
welcome, Badass Manifester. I am so glad you are here. I'm your host and head coach, Ashley Gordon, master mindset and manifestation biz expert, founder of the quantum coaching certification, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur obsessed with empowering you to create quantum leaps in your energy, your life, and your business. This is the show to help you make magic your everyday normal, where the ripple effect is real and the guest experts are world class. My mission is to power your conscious and subconscious mind with manifestation teachings, business tools, and coaching techniques to put your potential into action. Consider this your weekly up level. Are you ready for quantum transformation? Let's do this. Welcome back to another episode. You guys are in for such a treat today. I have one of my dear friends who is going to be popping onto the show. I have Jessica Esfandiary on the show today. She is a coach and integrative healer. She is the host of many beautiful retreats, healing ceremonies, and she just launched a podcast that you guys are definitely going to want to listen to. It's all about open relationships and all of her experiences through her lens of non-monogamy. It is such an amazing podcast. I've listened to it and it's just opened up my mind to so many amazing things. And she's actually been my friend for a long time. We used to work in the nightlife industry together. And I'm really excited for her to share her story with you and just share all of her beautiful wisdom. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I can't believe we're doing this. We have been friends for such a long time. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I mean, wow, what another life we lived, right?
It really was. It's honestly wild to think how we both ended up here. I feel like in such similar places after, growing up and working in nightclubs.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm grateful for that though. I'm grateful for all the experience. I feel like that experience really kind of helped me understand people on a deeper level working in the nightlife industry. So it's definitely been a bonus to what we do now in some weird way.
Oh my God. I feel like it was a training ground in like communication and like being a counselor for people.
Totally. Yeah, definitely.
People tell you all their stuff and you're like, okay, like, and they want answers. So you like start coaching on the fly at like 21 years old behind the bar.
So cool. So cool. Yeah. So share with everyone a little bit about what you do and what your journey's been like to, hosting retreats all over the world and helping so many people on their healing journey. Like, how did you get into this healing space?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, strap in because it has been a wild ride. So I guess I'll start with the nightlife industry. I was working in nightlife for years. From the time I was, bartending in college, like putting my way through school. And I moved to Vegas because I got a job in, or I didn't get a job. What I meant to say is I graduated college in 2008 and no one was getting a job because of, the state of the country at that point. So I was 22, I think, or 23. And I moved to Vegas with my 3 best girlfriends.
Okay, wait, I just have to interrupt there for 1 second because when you moved to Vegas, I was studying abroad in Italy and one of the girlfriends that you moved with, Lisa, was visiting Sadie and I when we were abroad. And she was like, we're moving to Vegas as soon as we get home. Like it was just like at that time. So I just need to interrupt and say that.
I know, it's so wild. Like she made the decision on that trip. She was visiting you.
That's
she
right.
flew home and was like, yeah, I'm moving to Vegas with you. Because that's what you do when you're like in your early 20s. You're like, I'm just going to move to Vegas from Philadelphia.
Why not?
Yeah. And I got a job working at Encore I opened Encore Beach Club, and that's what I was doing. I was like, okay, I'll work in nightlife. I'll kind of like work my way up. This is like a beautiful hotel. It's like the mecca of, going out. And I was making a ton of money for like a 23-year-old girl. And I stayed in that lifestyle for a long time until I realized like it was making me very sick. Well, I didn't realize it. I kind of had a diagnosis and it was realized for me. But at 28, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer and I had to have a radical hysterectomy, which means, they remove your uterus and your cervix and like some other parts. And that was like a huge wake up call for me. I think like, not to say I was doing anything wrong, but I mean, I was going to work sometimes at midnight and closing like the bar at 9 a.m., which is bananas. And I wasn't living my passion. I was sort of just making a lot of money and I had a great lifestyle. It was very flexible. I could travel. But I was like in not great relationships. I didn't have a solid relationship with myself. Like I had no spiritual practices. I didn't really know who I was. I was just sort of doing this autopilot thing that I had been doing since I was 18 years old, practically. And that came with a lot of kind of trauma. And also, it was such a shock. I think I was in shock for a while because it happened so fast. And it took me sort of a year after that to figure out, like, where do I go from here? Not only the physical healing, but it was such a cause for some emotional, spiritual healing. Like, what, I was asking myself really great questions, like, why did I call this into my life? How am I responsible for like what has happened? And not from like a self-deprecating place, but from like a really empowered place, because I knew if I could look at the situation in the way of like, what part have I played, then I had the power and I had the tools to not have that happen in the future. So yeah, that,
just interject right there. I think people could hear that and be like, whoa, like, I can't believe that you could ask yourself those questions with everything that you had just gone through. But I just want to say that Jess was always, I feel like you were always a spiritual person. Like you were always aware of, like, I think what we connected on early on was like manifestation and law of attraction. And like, we create our own realities. And so you already had that belief system.
Mm-hmm. I did on some level, which is, it's weird to think that like, I knew that stuff, but it wasn't integrated in my whole life. And I had this other part of my life that was like operating right in the autopilot and the like unconscious, just like go, 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 do, do, do. And I wasn't listening to any intuition that I had. So once that sort of like all came to a halt, because it has to, right? My body was like, no more, we will not have this. I started to think about, okay, like, what am I doing with my life? Like, life is so precious. I've like almost lost it. How do I want to grow up from here? And that sort of led me on a very interesting path. I worked on a documentary called Heal that I always talk about, being one of the big life-changing things for me in conjunction with sort of having my diagnosis and my surgery. And I thought I wanted to work in film and TV because that's what I went to school for. So I was like, forget nightlife. I'm going to like live for myself. I'm going to go work in film and TV. And this was one of the first projects that I took really seriously in LA. And that was all about mind body medicine. And it's so crazy. I just ran into the woman who was my boss the other night at dinner at Nobu in LA. Kelly Gore is the woman who she created.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah, she's incredible. And she was such like, I think a mentor for me. I looked up to her so much. I worked on the project for maybe 4 to 6 months. And that was the second catalyst. It was like, oh, I'm supposed to work in this world. I'm supposed to be sort of in this healing realm, but I didn't really know my place. And then that sent me on the journey of a yoga teacher training and sound healing training in Nepal. I got my Reiki attunements and became a Reiki master. And I started like traveling and teaching yoga and breath work and different things on other people's retreats. And after like 4 years of that, which was some of the best times of my life. Like, it was a complete training ground, and I just said yes to everything. Anything that interests me in that way, I just kept saying yes to it. And I kept doing these trainings and then sharing my gifts and honing my skills. And then finally came back to LA and was like, okay, I can do this here. I'm going to actually take this, really seriously and create a business out of it. And then a couple of years later, I did QCA with you, and here we are.
Yes, as a QCA graduate. Woo-hoo.
Yes, which was like such a beautiful program for me. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I had learned so much over the years. I had done coaching through a personal development program called Choice in Vegas, where I started mentor coaching and senior coaching. And, as I mentioned, learning all of these different modalities, right? Everything from yoga and breathwork to Reiki and sound. And then QCA really helped me take everything I knew. It actually showed me how much I had access to already and helped me put it into beautiful offerings that were scalable. So QCA helped me like really take what I was doing sort of willy-nilly for other people's businesses and create my own. And I like rented a place in Venice, in Los Angeles, and I had a studio, and I was seeing one-on-one clients and built a whole business. And then I met my partner, Lauren, and we started hosting, retreats, women's retreats and co-ed retreats actually. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. So that's like how I got here.
Oh my God. Are you at your house or are you at your studio?
I let my studio go in the fall of last year. I'm at my house now. So I have a home studio where I like record the podcast from. And I'm not actually seeing clients anymore one-on-one at all because I've shifted my business a ton into group work and coaching programs. But
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you. You're amazing.
Thank you. I know. I'm proud of me too. It's, man, growing up and like really, I just turned 37 this year, and I used to like, I don't want to like get any older, but I feel like these last couple of years have been some of the most magical, like beautiful and solid years of my life where I really know who I am and like what I'm doing and what I offer and how valuable all that is to the world. And because I see myself that way, I see other people that way too all the time, which is like beautiful. The beauty of it. Yeah.
And it's interesting how like everything that you've been through and your whole journey has led you. I mean, your Instagram used to be is it still Journey with Jessica?
It's actually still Journey with Jessica.
It is? Okay. Journey with Jessica. Like, I feel like it's the journey of Jessica, right? Like, it's so powerful and so perfect, like every single step of it has led you to this point. And I know we talked a little bit beforehand, you were sharing about how like you're ready to transition into motherhood and also like what that's going to look like for your business. And I would love for you to speak on that as far as people who are listening that have also been on a journey and maybe they have finally built this business that they've always dreamed of. And now they want to have this big transition in their life. And like, what does that look like for you? And what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, that's been my biggest learning over the last 2 years is like, okay, I had a really interesting habit of picking up a lot of things and never putting anything down and like committing to all of the things. And I've always had really big, grand ideas, and I just wanted to put it all out into the world. And I was really able to do that because it was just me. And so I had the nonprofit, right? I like found a nonprofit. I had so many different aspects of my business. And I didn't actually think I wanted to be a mother too, which this, I feel like, but just for people who are listening, I'm 37 and I had cervical cancer and I had a hysterectomy. So I actually physically can't get pregnant or like carry a child. We froze embryos about 6 years ago on the like just in case because we weren't sure. I was sort of like a no, and my husband's always been like a yes. But he's like, it's something we can talk about later because neither of us were ready. So that being said, I really was honoring the part of me that wasn't sure. And I didn't really want to do it just for him, even though he's the love of my life and like, the partner that I want to grow old with. So I think I would have, but I was afraid I would resent him potentially. And I really didn't want to give up like this really incredible life and this business that I had built, right? And I'm so glad that I waited, because I think sometime mid last year, I started to realize how content I was with my offerings and how much I had helped people, and sort of the reflection that I was getting back of the impact that I had made in people's lives that was sort of living on beyond me, whether it was like a retreat or a ceremony or something, or a coaching program. And that was so fulfilling. And I think also coupled with like timing and age, that I just woke up one day and I was like, okay, what's next, right? And I actually had someone tell me about motherhood in a way that became like the thing that was the tipping point for me. They described it as the greatest growth journey that they had ever been on. And I had never really heard somebody talk about it like that. Or maybe I had, but I didn't hear it.
Oh, that just gave me the chills. Like, right? I feel like I've heard that before, but that really just hit me.
Yeah. And I probably had heard it in passing, but I wasn't ready to like receive it as a message. And I was like, wait, what? And I'm a personal development junkie. Like, I'm like, where can I grow? How can I shed? How can I heal? Like, you know, how can I surrender? And I thought about it, and I had actually started to feel a bit stagnant in my own growth. And so I feel like the very selfish version of this is I was like, wait, I can't not have this, the biggest growth opportunity that's available to me as a woman, potentially, like me personally, totally. My journey. Cause I think for other women who don't want kids, like it's not for them, and it's, you know, it's great. It's very individual. So I heard that and I wrapped my head around it. And then that was when I was like, oh my God, okay, I could be a mom. I should be a mom. I want to be a mom. And then that was like this endless spiral. Like, and then I just started to get baby fever. So that was like a little nugget that I wanted to share, because I didn't really think I wanted kids. I was pretty sure in that. And actually, Posh and I went to therapy over it because we weren't sure what to do. So I'm really glad that I came to it like in my own way, on my own terms. And now I know that I'm like choosing it for myself. And not just because I think it's like what's best for like our relationship and he really wants to be a dad. So that's the beautiful thing. And to answer your question now, once I realized, okay, I want to be a mom, I started to make room in my life for what this looks like. And I know it's not happening for, you know, at least a year from now. And even from then it was like, okay, I have a couple of years, but it really had me look at my life and realize I can't keep living this way, because I won't be able to care for a child with how crazy busy I am. I mean, my like probably a lot of people listening, maybe if your schedule is like from the moment you open your eyes until the moment you go to bed, and you're fulfilled, but you're focusing on other people, right? Mm-hmm. I was looking at my life like, there's no way. I'm gonna have to make some drastic changes. And the interesting part about that was it had me look at, okay, if I realize that I can't do this for a child, like I can't bring a child into this situation, then how am I treating myself in this moment, in this situation? Like, it made me realize that I was on the journey of healing and self-discovery and growth, and I was talking a lot about reparenting, but I wasn't doing it for myself. I was just packing my days, running myself ragged, putting everyone else first, which didn't really catch up with me. I loved it. Like, I love my clients. I love my work. And so that was such a cause for this last year, which has been a constant state of letting go, like letting go of different parts of my business that really aren't in alignment, and that feel good and that I love, but realizing that if you have like 10 things, the bottom like 4 on the totem pole like have to go, even if you love them. Like, I love doing Reiki and I loved my one-on-one clients, but it just became like every month I was eliminating something, and it made me realize like how much I was overdoing. And if anything, how not only was I doing a disservice to myself, but likely all the people that I was working with weren't getting the best of me. And so the biggest, I think, thing that I've learned and that I've shifted is realizing that like if I want to care for a child, I really have to actually care for myself first. And that's been such a crazy shift in my business, because I've let go of so much, and yet I've become way more effective. I'm working with more people now than I was last year, and I'm working half the hours. And like all of these things that I sort of identified myself with, like moon circles on the beach, sound healing this, and having a studio and seeing people for Reiki and sounds, like that was my identity. And I just was able to let it go. Even women's retreats were my identity. And very recently, my partner Lauren and I are like, this isn't our ultimate like expression anymore. And so I think it's like honing in and getting more and more specific on what the one thing is going to be, which you actually just gave me the best coaching before we started recording. Yeah. And I know what that looks like. I think before I have a child, there's like one more thing that I guess I want to birth before I have a baby. But yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And just especially the piece about the identity, because I feel like that is so true. Like we get locked into these identities of like, this is who I am and this is what I do. And I don't know who I will be without this. Right. Like I remember feeling that way about yoga, teaching yoga. I was a yoga teacher before I became a coach. And as coaching started to take off, I had to totally let go of yoga, but I never saw myself doing that ever. And it was just, I don't know. It was just really, it was a challenge. It was definitely like a growth spurt in that moment of like, I have to let go of who I think I am in order to become who I'm meant to be. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's just like, that's so true. And I feel like people listening, whether you work in corporate or whatever, wherever you are in your journey, consider the identities that you are latching onto that are, I don't want to say in the way of who you're becoming, but what would you say like those identities are?
They can weigh you down.
Yes.
In an interesting way, like they're an anchor in a beautiful way. They're an anchor that can help you really identify with who you are and feel solid in that. But like an anchor can be a positive thing or a negative thing.
Ooh, such a good metaphor.
Yeah, it is so true. You really have to let go and be willing to completely walk away from like who you are, which is the scariest thing for us because it's like very attached to the ego. And our ego also can be very positive, very negative. It loves to just identify and to be able to like see things take shape in this one way. It's really scary to just completely walk away from that. But to know like you can actually always come back. Right. If something doesn't work, like say you take this like grand leap or, stop teaching yoga. Like if in 6 months you really miss it, you can go back. It's like I had to tell myself that like a million times. Like you can always go back to one-on-one clients if you really want to, or creating retreats in this format, which I think I will. It just looks different, and I think you have to really let go and fully leap and fully choose something else, then to see things really clearly. You get that perspective shift, and going back might look different with like a little tweak, but that's like what's meant to be.
Yeah, permission to go back, because I also think that like I have a friend who has been in conversation with me around like I don't want to go backwards in life. And the truth is that we're never going backwards. Even if you make the decision to do what you used to do, it doesn't mean that you're going backwards. You're still going forwards. Like I don't believe in backwards at all.
Same, because you could actually never go back to the exact same thing because you're different. Even if it's 6 months down the road, you're a completely different human, bringing yourself to an experience that maybe you think is going to be the same, but it will never be the same. It'll be so evolved because you're evolved.
Totally. Yeah. And I bet you, like, as much as those sound healings on the beach brought you joy, how much like work was that to get everything down there? Oh my God.
Jesus, it was so much. I had a whole team. Yeah. Like whether it was, I've had some like beautiful help over the years, but like my support system, Leah or Robbie, like sometimes Lauren, like hustling down there, like all these instruments, like gongs that weigh, like 100 pounds, like
oh my God,
setting everything up in the sand and then breaking everything down in the dark. What are we doing? Once a month for like a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
But what's cool about that, and I see myself in that because I led in-person workshops to start my business. My business was not started online. And I don't believe yours was either. Your business was started in person with your community that you've built.
Yeah.
And there is something to say about putting in that time to build your community. And I know that you have such a strong community. I would love for you to speak on community.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you for this question because I was just sharing this with a good friend and client who's getting ready to start her business.
Cool.
And there is nothing I think more beneficial than being with people in person at different stages of your growth. And like it never has to look like a certain way, but just to do it. Pasha and I started doing speaker series like 5 years ago, where we would just invite all of our good friends and we would have somebody who was an expert in something, usually from that same group of people, talk about it. I mean, just for an example, like one of our best friends, Tony, was a financial advisor and fiduciary. And a lot of our friends didn't have like IRAs. They didn't know the first thing about retirement. And we were like, why not? Like Posh and I did. We wanted to share that with people. So like Tony would come and he would like do a presentation for 2 hours and everybody
That's
would
so
bring
cool.
something. It would be very potlucky, you know?
That's
And
so
we were
fun.
like, it was so fun. And we were like, this
Not to
is really
mention, people don't
cool.
know what fiduciaries are usually. So that's probably very educational for them too that we're attending.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like fiduciary is somebody that their only responsibility is to like your financial choices. Like they have to have your choices in their best interest, which is like different than a broker who can like also have their financial interest in heart as well, with your money. So anyway, that was like an example, and then it lent into like friends who were coaches. Like our friend Brandon came and did a workshop on like communication and open-hearted communication, which became me doing yoga in my backyard for as many people that would fit, and then sound healings that way. And that grew into women's circles and moon circles. So it was just like, I just started a WhatsApp chat, that now like I'm barely on, but I'll pop on there sometimes and do invites, and everyone's like, yeah, you're still doing stuff. And it has like, a couple hundred people in it because people were like craving community. Everyone's hungry for it.
Yes.
So whatever your thing is, whether you want to do a cacao ceremony or you want to do a workshop on limiting beliefs, like, and you have a space to just start it, because community is so, so important. And you just never realize how much everyone's going through something so similar. It might look different, the specifics of their lives are different, but to be able to come together and share that stuff, not necessarily looking for answers, but just looking for witnesses, people to like witness you and your experience, is so powerful. And I didn't realize that my friends needed that. Then that is how I really grew my business, because everyone just started to identify me with the girl who did things. Then people would come to me and say, oh, my friend has this amazing talk that she wrote. And I'd be like, great, let's have her in my living room. So when I went to an online space, I already had such a foundation because people were just so used to seeing things from me, different kinds of content. And then the community started to ask me for what they wanted. And that helped me navigate into like, okay, cool, this is what people are asking for. So let me do more of this. And that's actually how like the sound healings on the beach evolved, because people wanted that, especially during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, community is everything. We
It
used to
really
live
is.
that way, like, in communities and villages and tribes, and now we have these like nuclear families where everyone's so isolated. So I think coming back into balance with that, of like leaning on other people for things, that's like probably the most important thing we can do as a society.
I love what you said about like being in that togetherness just to be witnessed, because we're all going through different things, and just to know that we're not alone is so important, and not to be fixed or to be healed, even just like to just have that knowing like, okay, I'm in a safe space with people who understand me.
Yeah. And sometimes that's all someone needs
Totally.
too, because we're all like our own healers. I always try to remind people that like it's not me if you come see me for Reiki or whatever it looks like. And so to be in a community with other people where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, I'm in charge, like I'm giving myself the breath work, or I'm taking responsibility for my life, I'm showing up to learn about my finances, right? That in itself. And and getting comfortable saying, I don't know what this is, and asking questions in a group of people can sometimes be like all the healing that someone needs at that
Yes.
point in their lives.
Yeah. That definitely was big for me. Like when I would stand up and even just like at the yoga studio at a group thing and I would ask a question and then I would like be so in my head about it, but also like, no, that was my medicine. That's what I needed. Like it, I don't know, just interesting.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
So, as you, okay, another thing I wanted to bring up was like the listening that you said you were doing. So, the community told you what they needed. And I feel like that's what makes you such an amazing coach too, is because you're a powerful listener. And so if you're listening and you're wondering like what do people need and you're just putting things out there just on the fly, I feel like you have built your whole business by doing some really deep listening to what's missing in the space.
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you for that acknowledgement. I really never thought about it that way. I've certainly been like, wow, I do things on the fly. Like I'm very responsive to people's needs when I see something isn't working, as hard as it can be to like let something go and shift, especially with the like multidimensional thing of like, I've learned to identify now with this as like my thing. But I really do feel like I have been very good at sensing these needs from a community and creating to deliver it, which
Yep.
is how I operated for a long time. Now I am shifting more into how do I bring myself into the equation?
Yep.
Like, okay, like what are my needs now? Because
Yeah.
I can continue to do what I was doing all day long, right? And have a successful business, like I was saying, but I would eventually probably burn out and maybe
Mhm.
not be able to be the kind of mother that I wanted to be, or that I want to be. But yes, I think that it's so important. It's like if you think about it, like market testing,
Mhm.
all like great businesses do that, and that's kind of what I was doing without realizing it. When you like put a product out, you want feedback. I'm
Mhm.
always encouraging like anyone that I'm helping start their businesses or clients who are shifting careers. It's like ask people what they want from you, because
Yes.
so many of us will try, we'll be like, okay, this is what I want to do, and we'll put it out without really having a sense of the
Conversation.
temperature, yeah,
Yeah.
of the community. Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing for people is like they don't have that sense and then they put something out and then it doesn't do what they want it to do or it quote fails. And they're like, oh, this is not meant for me. Like, this is not my thing. But really, it's just about knowing the temperature, like being able to gauge it
Mm-hmm.
and listen to what is being needed in the space. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
One of the
cool.
things, if I could just add this comment
Yeah.
that Lauren and I love to do is to survey our clients and participants that like come on our retreats. We like send out a survey after asking like, what would you have liked to see different? What could we have
Mhm.
done better? What is another offering, right? And that really like allows us to get actual data of like what our people that we love and care about like want from us.
Mhm.
And that's what's actually shifted a lot of our business recently, and kind of talking about community needs. Like, yeah, I now really only want to create things that people are asking for, because
Mhm.
otherwise, like maybe they're fulfilling and maybe they suit me and maybe some people enjoy them. But unless it's like a resounding yes from everybody, like this is something that will really help me in my life, and there's a lot of those people, then I feel like I'm missing the mark, because ultimately then there are a bunch of people asking for things that like I'm not listening to. I kind of feel like
Right.
that's been a big eye opener with my podcast with Open Late.
I was literally just going to ask about that.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm coming to realize like that has been the biggest thing about Open Late is it's very niche, obviously.
Yeah. Share a little bit about it so people know
Yeah.
more.
So Open Late is it's essentially relationships. It's a look at relationships through the lens of non-monogamy. And for those of you listening, I have been married for 7.5 years to my husband, and very early on in our relationship, we had an accidental threesome. It was not planned. It was like a good girlfriend of mine who I had always had an attraction to, but never really had the guts to do anything about it. didn't trust myself, wasn't like empowered in my own sexuality. But lo and behold, like we had a crazy night, you know, we were in Vegas, it was New Year's Eve. And she came home with us, and all kinds of thoughts and beliefs and everything came flying out of Pandora's box for me the next day. But because of all the tools and the work that like Posh and I had done on ourselves and like how we wanted to operate in our relationship, we moved forward with it, and we kept having these experiences as long as like we felt really good about them. And so over the last, gosh, that was like 9 years ago, over the last 9 years, we've been able to like completely open our relationship. We have a lot of agreements, and we have like our relationship is essentially our primary partnership, but we practice non-monogamy and polyamory. And I have pretty much a full-time other partner who's a woman, you know, who I'm in love with. She's like a love of my life. We call each other life partner, not girlfriend. And so it's wild. Like I never ever would have imagined my life looked this way. And I was very private about it for a long time because I was concerned with people's judgments, and I didn't want to hurt anybody. I was concerned about hurting my family, having them feel like ashamed, right? I had so much shame to unpack. And so about a year ago, I was like, I think I'm going to start a podcast, and I think I'm going to out myself, and I think I'm just going to tell the world. And it was really born out of coaching, because I had been in a space of coaching multiple people who were struggling with sexual shame, who were struggling with monogamy, who were struggling with the idea that they loved their partner and wanted to be with them forever, but also still had attraction to other people. And so I had done a lot of research, obviously, over the last like 5 years. This is a big part of my life that I love. And so I was like, I think I can really help people accept themselves. It's really all I wanted to do. I'm not like out there promoting non-monogamy openly. Is really a place for anyone who's in a relationship that wants to be in charge of their own relationship and design it, not based on this like one size fits all marriage model. And so that openly is this brand new community that I've sort of created very intentionally. And it's been so interesting to see, okay, I have no offerings in that space. I have like this podcast that I, you know, pop on once a week and share, you know, intimate details of our relationship and how it works. And then other guests come on and share sort of whether they're a sex therapist or a coach or a dominatrix, talking about, you know, all kinds of aspects of sex. And I have plenty of monogamous people on as well who just get to ask questions and see how some of the principles of polyamory can influence their monogamous relationships, to enhance them. And so to your point, I feel like now that I have this community, they're all like, how do we open up? I'm like, okay, that is so loud and clear. There are so many people that message me every single day asking for like, how do I talk about this with a partner? Or I'm a single man and like, I don't think I want to be monogamous. Like, how do I date this way? Or, you know, I've been married for 10 years and my wife and I are really interested in like being with other women. Like, how do we dip our toes into this world? And so I think my newest sort of offering is going to be something around how to open up, how to communicate, and all the inner work that comes with that, which is, you know, essentially helping people from a coaching, you know, perspective of like, okay, great, like what parts of yourself, you know, don't fully accept this part of you, and going back into like reparenting. It's like so much inner child work comes with opening up your relationship, or, you know, at least dipping your toes into a world of kink or polyamory or whatever it might be. Because so many people are interested, but because society says that this is so taboo, people don't talk about it.
But you talk about it.
I talk about it a lot.
Yes. And that's why I love you, because you are not afraid to speak your truth. And you maybe were afraid, but you did it anyway. And look at the impact that it's having. Because I believe that, I mean, I almost want to say everyone, but it's probably not everyone, but I would say like 85% of people probably have had the thought of I wish I could have an open relationship, or I wish that I didn't have to be monogamous. How can I be with one person forever? Like, I'm sure 85% of our population at least has had those thoughts.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And we even have some like data around those numbers. I don't know exactly what they are, but if you look at like people who would just show interest in another partner, or there's like studies where if their partner was like fully accepting of it, would they hook up with somebody else? Or, yeah, I mean, and non-monogamy looks like a million different ways. It doesn't even have to be like sexual non-monogamy. It can be like, platonic, intimate, connected relationships where you're allowed to sort of get different needs met with people that aren't sexual, that are just like, I'm can be really artsy. I use this example a lot, and Pasha's not. And so where do I like have other friends and people that I love deeply, that I'm connected with, that I can like go explore those things with, those sides of myself. But you're right. Like everybody, it's crossed the majority of people's minds because, I mean,
have you watched
biologically, it doesn't make a lot of sense that we,
Yeah.
You still get a biological response to being turned on by something, a person, or even like, something that's exciting that like makes your body light up. And that just doesn't go away because you commit to somebody else. Like you actually can't control like your body's like turn on. So, yeah.
So I know that people listening are probably the Pandora's box is now open. They're like, okay, gotta go to the podcast, gotta listen. Like, how are you going to be a mom and have a non-monogamous relationship? Like, I'm sure like all those thoughts. I feel like I've listened to episodes where you've talked about that, but maybe just touch on that quickly because we brought up motherhood and all that stuff.
Yeah, I would love to. So I've gotten this question a ton recently because I've started talking about it on the podcast. And, I don't actually know because we're not there yet. We have some ideas. And I think what we plan on doing is being regular parents who are tired AF. So like we're probably not going to be dating anybody new, at least for a while. But we also don't want to have our lives completely like swallowed up by the fact that we are parents. Like we want to keep our identities and bring our children into our lives. So, Lauren is like a huge part of both of our lives. She's here half of the week, spending time with us. And I very much see nothing of that changing. So when we have a kid, she will essentially be like a very prominent figure in their lives as like an aunt. And I'm not going to hide the fact that like, mom
that you're
and
also
Lauren,
like partners,
make out sometimes, which is actually so rare. Like our romantic relationship is, it's beautiful, but it's not like the focal point of our relationship. But I won't be hiding that from my children at all. And I think with any new partners, we will sort of use the rule that like a lot of, I think, people who are like divorced and very conscious with their parenting use, like, we're not going to bring strangers around our kids. I think we would wait like a very appropriate amount of time, but we are very different in that we're polyamorous. And so I think when divorced parents are bringing a new partner, it's very precious because they're like, this might be my person forever. Yeah. Whereas for us, we're like, I think this, guy's great and I might want to hang out with him for a while and then it might be over in 8 months and I'm not going to be super crushed about it. So, or maybe I will, right? But I think teaching our children that like these relationships can be very fluid and being really intentional with like who we bring into their lives. So striking that balance somewhere, but I don't know because, it could change. But so for the most part, I think we'll still continue to practice non-monogamy because it's just like who we are. It's not really a choice at this point. But we likely won't have time for like a lot of it.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. And I mean, imagine like being raised in an environment where this is just the way that it is. Mm-hmm. This is just normal.
That's my hope. And I've stressed about like, oh my God, will my kids like be made fun of, because like of their parents. But we also like live in Los Angeles and, everybody here has like 2 daddies and a mommy and, like it's very, we live in a little bit of a bubble of like liberal lifestyle. And I think that will support them. And oh my God, but my ultimate dream is to like move to a compound and like raise my kids with like basically all of our LA friends here who, you know, are just our friends. Like we're not dating anybody, but except for Lauren, but we're all having kids kind of at the same time. And so the dream is to like buy some land and like have a farm and raise all of our kids together. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's definitely the ultimate hippie lifestyle.
Yeah. I love it. Sign me up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. I think it's definitely not something that you hear every day. It's definitely not something we've ever talked about on this podcast. And so I'm really glad that you're the one who could share it and to kind of open our minds in this way and our hearts in this way to kind of just learn more about something that might be brewing inside of you or something that maybe you've pushed down in shame for a long time.
Yeah. I'm so happy to be the first to talk about it here. And I really love supporting people with that first step. We talk a lot about it on the show, and my main like purpose is that wherever you are, even if you plan on being monogamous forever, you can open your heart, exactly like you said, and accept yourself just on a deeper level if you've ever had those thoughts, or allowing yourself to explore like what those things might be, because you know you owe it to yourself to like explore all of you.
So true. So what makes Jessica a badass manifester?
Well, what makes me a badass manifester? I think, well, I forgot that you asked this question actually. Like, now I feel kind of stumped because I forgot about it.
Okay. First thoughts.
Yeah. I think what makes me a badass manifester, it's going to sound so generic, and it's easy. Well, it's simple, right? But not easy. But it's when I'm connected to myself through daily rituals. Like I'm always a badass manifester, but when I can hone in on like giving myself that time I need every day, I can really hear what's meant for me and what's not. And I can see it and I can like feel it and touch it and taste it and all the things. And so I think what makes me a badass manifester that's unique to me is I know that about myself. Like I know my higher self speaks so loud. And so when I like stop for a second and check in with her and I listen to the messages and I get super clear and focused, like nothing stands in my way of like what I want to create. So whether that's through actions or my meditations or my journaling, and you know, creating my life and my, I guess, like external experience to match like what's happening inside, that's what makes me a badass manifester.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your truth, your authenticity, just your heart with us. Like, it means so much.
Thank you for having me. I love you. I miss you.
I love you so much. I know we're on opposite coasts, but sometimes you'll visit and sometimes I'll visit.
Yeah. Very true. We're due for one of those.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So share with everyone where they can connect with you, work with you, be in your energy.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at journey.with.jessica. So Journey with Jessica with periods. And also Open Late, the podcast is the new one in both those spaces. And my website is just jessicasfandiary.com and openlatepodcast.com. But yeah, I hang out mostly on Instagram, so you can connect with me there. And
awesome.
Just thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And what do you have a retreat coming up or anything coming up like that you want to share about?
Actually, at the moment, no. Everything that we have is full, and we do a lot of privates. Okay. So we've shifted a lot of what we're doing into catering to exactly what people want. So reach out to me, because if you are interested in doing something with a group of friends, or even we've been working with a lot of businesses, like startups and corporates and masterminds, where If you want to host a weekend retreat to bring your people closer together, that's what we've started to specialize in. So
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, tag us. Let us know your favorite part of this episode, what resonates. Definitely get into Jess's energy. Follow her on Instagram, go to her website, all the things, and we'll see you next week. We'll catch you on the flip side. Have a great week, everyone. Woo! We did some work today. Thank you so much for listening. You know I love my BAM fam. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you know would love it too, because we live for the ripple effect over here. And how can you best support the show? Make sure you're subscribed, hit the 5 stars, and leave a review on iTunes, and let me know how the podcast has impacted you. I love being part of your real-time journey, so screenshot the episode and tag me and my guests on Instagram at manifestwithash. Now say it with me. I am my own power source. I am the master of my own energy, and I deserve everything that I desire. We don't just talk about it over here, we be about it. Now go get 'em.